We read in this week's portion, Mishpatim, Ve'ela Mishpatim asher tosim lifneim. We know that Torah is divided to various classifications of mitzvos, obligations. We have Mishpatim, we have Chukim, and we have Edus. Mishpatim are laws which refer to rational laws. Laws which are necessary just to maintain a society, not to steal, not to damage the infrastructure of what a society is meant to be. Chukim are statutes. On a rational level, we cannot understand or value the essence of what they are. And Edus is testament to commemorate things of the past. Redemption from Egypt. Shabbos is a testament to the world of God's the creator. Commemorative. We sit in the sukkah to commemorate that we should know that Hashem took us out of Egypt and we were in these huts in the desert for so many years. Eila mishpatim shatosim lifneim. So over here, Rashi cites the Midrash. The Torah juxtaposes the convening of the court to the building of the Mizbeach, which was the conclusion of the previous Parsha portion. Mizbech Adom Tasli, you should make an earthen altar. Lo Saleh b'malos al Mizbechi, you should not ascend with steps on the Mizbeach, but rather was a ramp. And then Torah juxtaposes to that the Mishpatim. So what is usually, not usually, always, the level of association, juxtaposition always indicates there's some kind of connection between the two of them. So Rashi cites Chazal, Lo Maloch Shetosim Sanhedrin Eitzel HaMikdash, to teach us that the high court of Israel, what we call the Sanhedrin Gedolah, has to convene on the Temple Mount alongside the location which they actually did the service, what we call the sanctuary. There was a line of demarcation, which was the sanctuary, which was called Kodesh, holy, and where the Sanhedrin would convene, which was Lishkas HaGozis, the stone of cut, chamber of cut stone. That's where the high court, comprised of 71 high justices, that's where they would convene. Now, to be qualified to be a dayan, a shofet, one had to have the ordination of Moshe Rabbeinu. You had to be ordained by Moshe or by a person who was ordained by Moshe. So therefore there was a transmission of ordination. Who was qualified to ordain? The person himself was ordained. He was qualified to ordain. And all the laws which pertain to a court, whether it's monetary, whether it's penalty, whether it's corporal, capital punishment, whatever it is, those verdicts can only be rendered only by a court that the dayanim, the shoftim, are actually the qualified because they have this level of ordination. And that's why the Torah refers to them as Elohim. Elohim, meaning they have a godly status, these people, because they're connected to Moshe Rabbeinu. But even more than that, as we discussed many times, there's a pasuk in Tehillim where David says, Elokim nitzav b'das kel. God himself, he convenes with the court. It's interesting, there's a law that if you have conspiring witnesses and due to their testimony there's a verdict given, and then we find out that they were conspiring, the law is, we say we do unto them what they conspired to do unto the defendants which they had testified against. However, the law is that if, let's say, it's only if the verdict was not carried out yet. If the verdict was carried out, although the witnesses are disqualified, but the law of do unto them what they conspired to do unto the accused, that is not imposed on the witnesses. Why? Because Torah says, "Kashe zomam lasus lochiv." You do to them what they conspired to against their brother. But if it goes beyond conspiracy, it actually happened, the person was put to death, the person received the lashes, in that situation, then, although the witnesses are disqualified, but we don't do unto them what they conspired to do unto the innocent victim who they victimized. What about if they had come and said, so-and-so has a financial liability, and the court ruled he must pay so much money, and the man paid. There, even after the man pays, because since the money could be returned, it's always on a conspiracy level. Once you take a person's life, you can't bring him back. That verdict is irretractable. But money is not irretractable. The money could be returned. Therefore, it's always on a conspiracy level. Therefore, the witnesses could be found guilty even after the verdict has been delivered, because it's always on the conspiracy, because it could be overturned and returned. We speak about a mistake. A court rules capital punishment. You'd say, there's always human error. There's never human error regarding a qualified court. Because if you meet all the criteria of what a court is meant to be, and you're committed to what the Torah dictates, Elokim nitzav b'askel. The judges, they see through the eyes of God, and therefore it's a divine verdict. It's divine. But the man was found innocent. It was found out he wasn't the murderer. Doesn't make a difference. But God said this man must die. Maybe not for this, for some other reason. So therefore, it's always a din emes lamito. It's always a correct verdict. But to be able to achieve that level of correctness and absolute correctness, you must be Elohim. You must be qualified. Now, the law is that the Sanhedrin Gedolah, the High Court, convened on the Temple Mount, as I said in the Lishkas Hagosos, the Chamber of Cut Stone. Every community had a Sanhedrin Ketana. It was a lesser court which was comprised of 23 judges. Also, same level ordination, 23. The lower courts could also render decisions of capital punishment. But they could only render that decision of capital punishment if the High Court was convening on the Temple Mount. If the High Court was not on the Temple Mount, the lower court cannot rule. There had to be this level of connection. If the High Court is on the Temple Mount, then we talk about the lower court could rule. If the Temple Mount should leave that location, the lower courts cannot rule. What is it all about? We say, Kim Tzion Teisi Sora. From Tzion, that's where Torah emanates from. What is the Temple Mount? That's the location of the divine presence. The Shekhinah is there. If the High Court is associated with the divine presence, with the Shekhinah, all the courts are connected. So what is actually the source of clarity? What transfers this clarity or this connection to the divine presence to all the other courts? Because they're all tentacles of the what? Of the High Court. But if you have tentacles, but if the head doesn't exist, there are no tentacles. So if the High Court is on the Temple Mount, which is the location of the Shekhinah, of the divine presence, they have that, then it's Elokim nitzav b'askel. This is passed down, that clarity is passed down to every one of the other courts. If the High Court should leave its location, the lower courts cannot rule. This is the understanding. But it has to be, that's the reason why the juxtaposition, Elam Mishpatim, has to be next to the Temple Mount for that reason, because the only way they could receive and have relevance to that level of absolute truth is only if they're connected to truth. But you're only connected to truth only if you meet the criteria of what the source of all truth dictates. So they have to meet all the laws and the protocols which the Torah creates and dictates and communicates to be a qualified judge. We find that Torah tells us, "Lo situlcha asherah etzel mizbach Hashem Elokecha." You should not plant an asherah tree near the mizbach Hashem Elokecha. Elohei chesed, Elohei zov, Elohei sasel, golden and silver idols you should not make. So the Gemara tells us, the Talmud tells us, that a dayan, a judge who's not qualified to judge, it's like planting the Asherah tree, this idolatry, right along the temple, right along the altar. Or it's like, it's considered golden and silver graven images. That's what it is. A judge who's not qualified. Dayan she'eino hogun, a dayan who's not qualified to judge. What do we compare it to that? Now, again, why is a judge qualified to judge? How does he carry such a responsibility? We're talking about a human life at stake, or many other things are. This is supposed to be truth. How can this man be a purveyor of truth where he doesn't have the basis to even process what truthful is and what's not truthful? The answer is, it's a sham. It's like Elohei zov, Elohei chesed, lo sasaloch. It's like a graven image. They believe this has godly powers. It has nothing. It's just wood, stone, or metal, or precious metal. That's all it is. It's nothing. He may look the role of the dayan, but if he's not the one who's sufficiently learned and have the qualifications, he doesn't have that connection to the Shekhinah. If he doesn't have the connection to Shekhinah, as brilliant as he may be, he's not going to have that divine clarity, that divine stamp of approval on that. I'm going somewhere with this right now. So therefore it's compared to the Asherah tree, the idolatry, although they believe it had godly powers, because it was a deity or the gold and silver idol had, it's nothing. This total disconnect is nothing. It's all it is. It's a facade, but there's nothing behind the facade. That's all it is. Now we learn, the Torah tells us, Asher tosib lifneihem. So the Gemara says, the Medrash says, interesting over here, that if you have a secular court, has a law which is identical to the Torah law, torts, damages, and you go before a secular court, the judges are not Jewish judges. It's not within the context of what a Beis Din is, a rabbinical court. Asher tosim lifneihem v'lo lifnei ovdei kochovim. Before your court, not before their court. And if you do, it's considered something very serious. It's a chil Hashem. Va'afilu yodata b'dinecho sheim donos hakdini Yisrael al tevi'eu be'erkos shalem. Even if though the law is identical, don't bring it before their professional judges. You desecrate God's name, and you esteem and revere the idols, idolatry, to give praise to them. Shenemar quotes a posuk in the Torah, Kilo tsurenu tsuram. Our rock is not like their rock. Evenu plilim. Our enemies are plilim, our judges. She'oivenu plilim. When our enemies are our judges, if we go to them to seek out truth, how to live our lives when we have a claim, rather than going to our courts, that's edus, that's a testament that we're giving special value and acknowledgement to what they believe in. Okay? Now the question is why? Let's say the court, it's not a religious court, it's purely secular court. How do we understand it? But it says, it's a b'chalas Hashem, you're desecrating God's name, and you make her a shema alilim lashbicham. So the Midrash explains it. It says, Moshel Madovadoma. What is it analogous to? L'chola shenichna sarofi levakro. There was a person who was very not well, and the doctor came to make an evaluation, physical evaluation. Omel levnei veso. So the doctor says to the members of the family, Hachileo v'ashkeo kol mashir. Anything he wants to eat, anything he wants to drink, just give him. Don't withhold anything. Al timnu mimenu klum. Don't deny him anything. Nichnas el acher, he goes to another patient to make an evaluation. He says to the family, Hizoru, you must be very shal yochel davar ploni veishta davar ploni. He should not eat this kind of food, not drink that kind of drink. Amr lo, so the family says, Lezel marta lechol kamashu rotzeh. To the other family, he said he could eat whatever, to eat and drink anything he wants. Uzeat omer al yochel, and to this family, he say no. So the doctor says, I explained, the first person is not meant to live. So it's not going to make a difference. He eats, doesn't eat, what he eats, it's not in any way going to compromise his health. Because he's not part of the living. Just a question of time before he dies. Ben yochal, whether he eats, whether he doesn't drink this kind of food or diet, yomos, he's definitely going to die. But the other person who still has sufficient amount of health that he could live and he could recover, he should not eat. Because that's only going to intensify the illness. The statutes of the nations of the world. The Navi says that the statutes of the nations are vanity, are vain. I've given them statutes which are not good, laws which you cannot live by them. I've given them mitzvos, commandments, and statutes which are good. By observing the statutes and the laws which they do, they will live by them. They will live due to them. So let's understand. We find at Sinai, the Malachim, when Moshe Rabbeinu ascended to receive the Torah on our behalf, the Malachim came before Hashem and said, Ma enish kisis karenu. Man is so fickle, he's not even worthwhile mentioning. Let your splendor be in heaven. Now, we have Taryag mitzvos, 240 positive commandments, 365 negative commandments, dietary laws. We have many commandments. What relevance to angels? We're talking about eating, their dietary laws, observing times, Shabbos, Yom Tif, Tefillin, many things. What's even the consideration that this has relevance to the angels? That they say, you should give it to us, not to mankind. Because man is fickle, he's prone to fail. What's even a consideration? Now, when we do mitzvahs, we study Torah, do anything, what are they? Each one of them is a symbolism. What we do I'll give you an example, we find that all the laws of Shabbos are derived from the creative activity that was needed to build the Mishkan. When we observe the Shabbos and we don't violate the 39 categories of creative activity, what are we doing? We're commemorating God, that he was the creator of the world. Because Torah juxtaposes the laws of Shabbos and the laws of the building of the Mishkan. So therefore, it's derived from here. Whatever creative activity was needed for the Mishkan, that's what you're not permitted to do on Shabbos. What is one thing after another? I mean, you're not permitted to cook, to dye, to sow, to reap. What relevance does this have to do with creation? The answer is, each one of these things are only symbolisms. When Hashem said, let there be light, and we do other things, that physical activity is the equivalent of the action or the energy that was released to bring about a certain result. So when we do or don't, each one of these are purely symbolisms representing something in another dimension of existence, and it activates those forces because it's a representation of that. The Gemara tells us, Eina brocha chal elado asami minayim. Brocha can only come upon something that's concealed from the eye. So therefore the Gemara says that if a person brings in his harvest and he quantifies the harvest and he says at tefillah, let brocha come upon my harvest, it's a supplication in vain. Why? Because it's been quantified. But before he brings it in, before he quantifies it, he says, let it, bracha, come upon my harvest, it's a valid tefillah. Why? Because since it's an unknown quantity, bracha could come upon that. So we explained, name it a Maral of Prague, what's the reason? Anything which is finite, anything which is measured, anything which is weighed, which we haven't understand what it is, that means it has limitation. The concept of bracha is spiritual. Spiritual is unlimited. So once you put it within a physical context, it no longer has relevance to bracha, because blessing is unlimited. So when it's an unknown quantity, it has relevance to what? It reflects the spiritual character. Therefore, bracha could come upon it. So the obvious question is, there's a mitzvah to build a Mishkan. The specifications of the Mishkan were so exact to the nth degree. All bracha comes from the Mishkan. Everything comes from the Mishkan. The ultimate bracha. God's presence is there. So here we're saying anything which is quantified and specific, and as specific definitely as the Mishkan, bracha cannot come upon there. And the ultimate, which is infinite, has relevance to the Mishkan. And all bracha comes from there. The example which is given that once it's quantified, bracha cannot come upon it. It says if you have a bushel of wheat, or so many bushels of wheat. Now what is a bushel of wheat? A bushel of wheat is a bushel of wheat. It begins with a bushel and ends with a bushel. Its value is purely its physical essence. Once you quantify it, I know what I have. I have 1 bushel, I have 10,000 bushels. When we speak about the Mizbeach, it's so many cubits, or the Shulchan in the Mishkan, so many cubits, 2.5, this, whatever it may be. Have I quantified what the essence of the Shulchan is? I've only identified the physicality of the Shulchan, of the table with the showbread one on. I only identified and quantified the dimension of the Mizbeach, of what is the symbolism of Mizbeach. What is its innate value? Only God knows. The ramifications and the extent of that, that's an unknown entity. Therefore, it has relevance to bracha. Many years ago, once mentioned the story, Rashiv Zechariah V'rocha, he would use a doctor who was in downtown Baltimore, who as a teenager learned Bechavrusa with Reb Elchanan Wasserman Zechat Tzarech Levrocha. And he came to the United States in the early 1900s, went to medical school, and he very much revered my Rosh Hashiva. And if you'd walk into his office, he would have a Vilna Shas in his break front. Not that he studied it, but he had his medical books, that's what he had. He was not an observant man. gave it up. And I only know this conversation because my Rosh Hashiva shared it with me. And he said to my Rosh Hashiva, he says, we wear tefillin, a leather box that has parchments in it. What's its value? The leather, the straps, has to be black. It has two shins, a shin on each side of the shel rosh, has parchment inside with certain words written on it. What's its value? Doesn't make any sense. So my Rosh Hashiva said to him, he says, I want to explain you something. He says, you have Einstein's brain, and you have a person who has a brain who's retarded. You look at both brains. The physical makeup of the brain, it's the same brain. But, so what's the difference? There's a chemical activity in one brain which is not in the other brain. And one is the ultimate of genius, the other is the ultimate of limitation. The answer is, it's a representation. Within the sphere, certain things happen. They activate energies. That's what it is. Because it's a representation of something, therefore brings about the ultimate. That's the difference. So therefore, when we talk about anything we do, tefillin, matzah, whatever it may be, it goes beyond, because the matzah didn't become leavened because of Rosh Hashanah of Egypt. Therefore, as a result of that, it has endless ramifications and positive consequences. And the same thing with something which is a transgression. Same thing. You have two laws, a secular law, a Torah law, identical. The Torah law is a symbolism. The secular law is rooted in humanity. There's no law that's given independent of the rest of the Torah. It's part of the total composition, which is known as Torah Hashem. That's what it is. The secular, so therefore, one has one representation, the other has another representation. I'll give you an example. I always say it over the beautiful mashal from the Chofetz Chaim, where he says, "Schai b'hayal maleko." There's no such thing as reward in this world. Yet the Torah tells us that Hashem pays off his enemies in this world, lavido, that when he passes away, he goes into the oblivion. But if there's no such thing as reward in this world, so how does he pay him off? So he gave the example about the note with the watermark of the Tsar and the note, which was a counterfeit note, even though the printing was identical. But because one had the watermark of the Tsar, that was authentic currency, and the other one wasn't. If a person does something as part of the Torah, that means that has infinite value. It's part of a system which is all symbolisms. It's not you're doing the right thing. I'm doing that because the second court ruled. Here I'm doing that. This ruling comes from a court, a rabbinic court, which carries the ordination of Moshe Rabbeinu. And this law is part of the full gamut of what Torah is. Morris says Torah is B'gematria 611, numerically. And we hear Anochi Hashem Elokech lo yichol hibacherim al ponai, that's 613. That's the Torah. Morris says, why is it called Torah? Because it gives us, it's Yoreh Derech, it's Moreh Derech, it gives us a direction. It tells us how to live our lives. But as Jews, this directly connects to our spiritual makeup, that it activates and perfects every aspect of our being, of our spirituality. Therefore, going to the non-Jewish court, lo tzureinu ksuram, our rock is not like their rock. It's a whole different level of representation. Well, but you're doing the right thing. Does it really make a difference? Why? Of course it makes a difference. Why? The question is, what is it connected to? You know, today we understand things we never understood. We speak about the certain energy fields. Certain things create energy fields, other things don't. You know, the Torah itself has energy fields. Touches upon infinite levels of that. Therefore, if you go there, you say it's the same. That's a Chil Hashem. It's just not a perfunctory act, but this is God's Torah. It's a whole different reality. Could you imagine? A person receives a gift from a king, and afterwards he gives it away, and he has something replicated to be that. So when the king comes, he should think it's not the same. It's a poor example because it's not really, it's far from what the reality is. But just even on a slight semblance of a comparison, it's a disgrace. How do you give it away? Well, it's the same. What does it really make a difference? It's the ultimate level of disrespect. It's a different reality. Every day we conclude the Shemon Esrei, we have a tefillah. So we started with. The Beis HaMikdash should be rebuilt speedily in our time, and Hashem should give us our portion in Torah. What does one thing have to do with another? One's to rebuild the Beis HaMikdash, the other is our portion in Torah. The Chavetz Chaim says each person at Sinai received his portion of Torah. No two people have the same portion of Torah. So you have to merit to be able to draw out the portion. For that you have to be meritorious, because you have to be at a special level to receive it all. So we say, when will we ultimately receive it? And then you will give my portion of Torah. What's the reason for that? Why does the High Court have to convene in the Lishkas HaGozos, Chamber of Cut Stone, alongside the sanctuary? That's the Shekhinah. Where the Shekhinah is, that's where you have clarity. That's where God, you see through God's eyes. That's where it is. When the Beis HaMikdash will be rebuilt and God will be in our midst at that special level, then everything becomes clear. Then when you read it, you say, now I understand. It's a whole different dimension of understanding. Therefore, they go hand in hand. Over here, the Torah tells us, "Asher tosib l'fneihem," you should place it before them. This is a little difficult, but it's medrash. Gemara, Amalu HaKadosh Baruch Hu l'Moshe, lo salel daitoch, lomar eshtalem b'perek v'alocha bezu givul pomer. Don't think for a moment that you can teach them the chapter or the law twice or three times. Achte stura b'fiyem kimishnos, until they're able to grasp or retain the material. It'll be in an orderly fashion that they'll be able to quote it exactly as you taught them, as it was taught. But I'm not going to burden myself to give them an understanding of the reasoning of the issues and its ramifications. Moshe may have such a consideration. Twice, I'll teach them. Twice, three times, review it, that they'll be able to quote it identically. They'll know the halacha, the law, perfectly, as it was taught. But to go them and elucidate it, to give them, maybe not. Hashem says no. You must place it before them, kishulchan haruch, umuchan lechol lefnei odam. As you have a table prepared with the foods are all processed and ready for consumption. It has to be ready for consumption, fully to grasp it. You have to present it in the most elucidated level, the greatest level of clarity. What's the consideration? You would think that maybe Moshe would think he'll teach us twice, three times that we should be able to retain it and to quote it as it was taught us, more than not. So what's its value? What's its value? So when he teaches that we know, but in terms of to have an appreciation for its application, all that, we don't know. What is it all about? So I was thinking exactly what we're saying. If a person is committed and connected at the most advanced level to spirituality, all you have to know, you have to read the text. Understanding the text, application of that text, because you have a grasp of it, you don't have to be taught that. I'll give you an example. A person has an ingenious mind, and he's taught something at a very superficial level, but the text is enriched with information and understanding which is phenomenal. This person, because he has this phenomenal mind, he reads those words, immediately he understands its innate value. Person who has an ordinary mind, unless every detail is explained, he's not going to be able to extrapolate it and see its true value. If the Jew himself would be at that special spiritual level, like Moshe Rabbeinu was, all you have to do is just have to have the information. Teach you twice, 3 times, that you'll be able to quote it exactly as it was given. You don't need more than that. You say the words, you reflect on them, automatically you draw out whatever is contained within those words. Hashem says, but that's not the reality. The Jews are not there. They will not be there after coming Mashiach. We speak about, and even then, it's Tishri Tartz Kushus Abayis. Any unresolved query in the Gemara, we have to wait for Eliyahu to come. He will resolve it when he comes. What do we need him to resolve it? We'll have that level of clarity. Even then, you're not going to have that level of clarity. You still need Eliyahu. So Moshe Rabbeinu, at this point, Kabbalah Torah, before the Chet HaEgel, where we were spiritual beings in a physical setting, maybe twice, 3 times, it's enough. To have the text, the laws intact exactly as they were meant, and you retain them, you could quote it, it's enough. Hashem says, no, you must elucidate it and present before Shulchan Aruch, like a table that's prepared for immediate consumption, where the person who benefits from it has to do nothing more than just consume it. That's it. He's purely a consumer. He's not a processor. He doesn't have to do any processing. Over here, the Baal HaTurim says the first pasuk has 5 words in it. Eila mishpotim shetosim lefneim. These are the laws you should place before them. What does the number 5 allude to? So Baal HaTurim says, Eish b'posuk hey tevos. Lomar loch kol adon din emes labito. That a judge who renders a truthful judgment, kilu kiyem hey chamishikum shitorah. It's like you fulfilled the 5 chumoshim. Uchilu nase shutuf la kodesh baruch ma'aseh bereishis. And in addition, you're God's partner in creation. Now, is that 2 things or 1 thing? It's as if you fulfilled Chamisha Chumshi Torah. And in addition, you're God's partner in creation. We find that there's a pasuk in the Torah where Klal Yisrael is referred to 5 times in the same pasuk as Bnei Yisrael. Bnei Yisrael is mentioned 5 times in 1 pasuk. We could have used pronouns. You have to say, use the noun over and over again. So Rashi cites the Midrash. Why are we mentioned 5 times in the same 1 pasuk? Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, Bnei Yisrael, 5 times. Mm-hmm. So Rashi quotes the Midrash that because we're beloved to Hashem, as a person loves his child, he doesn't say he or she. Every time he mentions the name of his child, it engenders a certain degree of joy. By mentioning the child, love to that child. And Hashem, every mention that that's a display of his love. Why 5 times? Because Chamisha Chumshi Torah. That corresponds to Chamisha Chumshi Torah. What does that have to do with Chamisha Chumshi Torah? That's why it's mentioned. Now, why are the Jewish people so special? Because we said Nasa v'nishma. That's why we're special. Nasa v'nishma is the Chamisha Chumshi Torah. When we said Nasa v'nishma, at that moment, we actually finalized and secured the objective of creation. Until then, as it says, Yom HaShishi, the world was questionable whether it would go beyond the receiving of Torah at Sinai. Because the world was created conditionally. There is a nation that has to accept the Torah at Sinai. That's the objective. If that objective is not met, the world reverts back to pre-existence. When we said Nasav Nishma, that's when it happened. So why are we beloved? Because we accepted unequivocally to fulfill the 5 Chumashim. That's what's 5. So the 5 indicates a special love. But why is there special love? Because if not for Torah, there's no existence. The Gemara quotes a pasuk in Yirmiyah, Im lo brisi yom v'lo lo chuk shemayim v'ortz lo samti. If not for my covenant being in effect, day and night continuously, the world wouldn't exist. And the Gemara says, what? The Mishnah says, what is brisi? Brisi, my covenant, that's Torah itself. So kol adon din emes lamito, the 5 words in that pasuk. That's like fulfilling the 5 Chumashim. That's the 5 Chumashim. That's the Torah's entirety. You become God's partner in creation. Why? Because, why does the world exist? Only because of the 5 Chumashim. 5 Chumashim doesn't mean only Torah Shebechsav, doesn't mean only the written law. It means with the oral law, everything that's contained within there. That's what it is. And that's done din de emes labito. If a person studies Torah and he's not interested in truth, he has his own understanding, his own way of interpretation, unrelated to Masorah, it's nothing, has no value. You're corrupting the Torah. When we study Torah, we have to look for its truthful understanding. We can't delude ourselves and draw from it anything, and therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu gave us Yud Gimel Midas HaTorah in the Dreshes Behem. There's 13 methodologies how to decipher the Torah. And what's 13? We always say that's Echod. You want to have relevance to Echod, who's Emes. You want to have relevance to Emes, you must actually strive for that and not delude yourself. This Chamisha Chumashi Torah, Emes Keneva al Timkor. That's words of Shlomo Melech. Acquire truth, don't sell it. What's it referring to? Acquire truth is referring to Torah itself. Don't sell it. Don't compromise it. Don't pass it on. So of course, you're God's partner in creation. Because the Torah itself, the world wouldn't exist. So if there's no Torah, there's no world. So if you go and you present it and live by it and rule by it and dictate by it, that's the five words. You're God's partner in creation, because creation only continues to function and thrive because of those 5 books. The Chamisha Chumashi Torah, the 5 books. There's a pasuk in Mishlei, Melech b'mishpat yamed oretz. The king, through justice or judgment, he establishes the land. V'ish trumos yarsena. But the man of trumos, of tithings, he will destroy it. What does that mean? Malka shel Torah, the king of Torah, the prince of Torah. Mishin Shuosa, we're talking about the judge who presides over the court. The judgment, the justice which he renders, Mamad Oretz, he secures the land, he secures existence. V'ish trumos yarsena. What does that mean? What's truma? Truma has to be put aside for the Kohen tithe. Where do you put it? You put it in the corner to make sure it's not contaminated. But the bulk of the food is not consecrated. Only a small percentage is put aside. You put it in the corner. V'omer mali b'torach hatzibur. I should go and interact with the community. You know, by rendering judgments of justice, you don't make friends. Because the one who loses the case, he doesn't love you very much. Just create enemies. Who needs it? Who has to be bothered? You want to be burdened by the community. Mali b'dineim, Mali lishma kolam, do have to hear all their complaints and their claims. Shom lachi nafshi, I'd rather leave me in peace. I could study Torah, do it. Harizeh machrav se'olam, that person who has this kind of attitude, that he doesn't put himself out for the community to render judgments and to adjudicate and to mediate between defendants, he's machrav se'olam. He's destroying the world. He's turning his back on the world because you need justice. There's Trumas Yarseno. Maaseh Reb Asi was one of the greatest Aboroim. Shoy Bistal ben Olam, when he was on his deathbed, Nichnas ben Achos Etzlos, his nephew, came to visit him. Motza Bochi, he found his uncle crying. Omalo Rebbe, Nemato Boche, he says to his uncle, Rebbe, my teacher, why are you crying? Yesh Torah shlomartu v'limart, is there any Torah that you didn't study or you did not disseminate? Hare Talmidecha v'yoshim lefanecha, all your students are surrounding you. Yesh g'milas chason shlo asiso, is there any act of loving kindness that you didn't do? Val kol amidos shoyibok, but the most outstanding quality you had, you didn't get involved with passing judgment on people. So the nephew saw that as a positive. You didn't allow yourself to assume community responsibilities, to take a position of authority in the community. That's exactly why I'm crying. That's what I'm worried about. Maybe there's going to be an accountability, and I'll be held accountable because I could have and I didn't. The ish trumas yersena, and a man who allows himself to be in a corner and not being involved, he's destroying the world. I could have made a difference, and I didn't make the difference. That's going to be my culpability. That's going to be the claim against me. That's why I'm crying. That's what it's about. You know, people don't like to hear what they don't want to hear. The Gemara tells us that a person who's a Rav in a community, that if the community loves him, it's not necessarily a good sign. And if they dislike him, very often, and where it's a baseless level of dislike, because he tells them the right thing, which they don't want to hear, that's the proper Rav. He's the proper one. People don't want to hear what they don't want to hear. They want to hear what they want to hear. Therefore, but factually, people have to be rained in upon. And a person can only appreciate what's right when he understands what's right. If he believes what's right is what he thinks is right, that doesn't mean it's right. And ultimately, everything collapses over time. The Chofetz Chaim writes, in the 1800s, there was a mass immigration to South Africa. And many Jews traveled from Russia and Lithuania because it was like the Ivory Coast over there. One was able to earn tremendous amounts of money in a short period of time. And when Jews went there, for the period they were there, they abandoned the Judaism. There wasn't an infrastructure of a Jewish community. They'd have to deal with the Boers, and they'd have to drink their wine. They'd have to socialize with them to be able to create business relationships, and they would eat non-kosher meat and chalev, and drink their wine, and eventually it actually impacted very seriously on them. Some of them took their families there, and the families totally abandoned the Judaism totally. So Chofetz Chaim writes, he says it's a known fact that if you don't socialize with the Gentile, initially you may be offended. But over time he realizes, in terms of your integrity, that the reason why you're not socializing is because you can't compromise your relation with God. That your priority is your relation with God. And when he sees that at all costs you will not compromise your relation with God, then he'll stop respecting and revering you. And not only that, he will trust you even that he'll leave his money with you because he knows that you will not steal from him, because he sees your integrity. But if he sees a Jew where he compromises on God and he's not concerned for God, he's going to be concerned for him. Could he be trusted? Only the one who's willing to sacrifice at all costs his relationship with God, that's the person the Gentile will appreciate and will respect and revere. Who wants law and order if you think you get away with it? But a person who understands the value of order, the value of rightness, the value of decency, the value of integrity, the value of ethic, but they have to be taught. Without that, it doesn't happen. It's just a question of time. I told over a story this morning. In the early part of the 20th century, there was a family came to New York, and many people were very poor. And this person was so poor that the family lived in a coal cellar. So you live in a coal cellar, you know what the kids looked like. They were covered with the soot of the coal dust. So there were these children, they were playing in front of one of these tenements on Lower East Side, black as coal. It was clear, it was the soot. And a woman walks down the street, was driving by in a car, a wealthy woman, and she sees these children, and it really pulled at her heartstrings. She never saw somebody living in such impoverishment. She comes over to the boys and she says to them, "Is your mother here?" Whatever it is. So the mother comes out, and the mother explains, we have nothing. We live in the coal cellar, and our children are exposed to this. And she says, we'd like to help you, to take you out of this lowly level of living, this uncleanliness, unhealthy environment. We'll rent an apartment, we'll provide for clothing and this and that. Wealthy people, they were Jewish. And the woman says, I have to speak to my husband first. Husband was at work, whatever he did, I'm sure some menial chore which didn't bring in much anything. And the husband comes home and he hears the offer. The man says, look, I'll put you on your feet, you'll be able to live at a decent level. So the first question he asked me, he says, are you a Shomer Shabbos? The wealthy man. He says, no, I don't observe Shabbos. That means you earn money on Shabbos. I will not take a penny from anybody if that money is a result of the desecration of Shabbos. The man was shocked. Never heard of such. The family is living at the lowest level of poverty. Kids are covered in coal dust. And the man says, I will not compromise my standard of allowing myself to take money, although it will make my life better, if it's something which is tainted. That's, to me, it's tainted money. It made such an impression on this Jew. He became a Baal Tshuva. Him and his family. They never heard of such a thing. It's like mind-boggling. You say the man has to be out of his mind. Who ever heard of such a thing? No, because he stood up for what he believed. If that is what the Torah dictates, God dictates, regardless of my predicament, it's okay. I'm willing to accept it. Melech b'mishpat yamid oretz. People only understand what's right. There's law and order. If everybody does what they believe they want to do, it says, "Vish trubas yaraseda." If you stand on the side and let things happen by themselves, machriv es olam, you're destroying the world. Destroying the world. Order is only order if it's God's order. There's a world order, but if the world order is not God's world order, you see what this world looks like. If man is so-called the author of what world order is. I always quote this midrash. It's in this parsha. you'd find that Tamid Mabul, Dor Mabul al Shlosu Mishpat Ksiv Bem Lo Yodun Ruchi Ba'odum Olam, because justice was corrupted at the time of the Mabul, of the great flood. Hashem says, I will not allow my spirit to be associated with this existence. If there's human justice, ain't din lamalo. There's no divine justice. But if there is no human justice, then there's divine justice. What does that mean? If mankind lives within the context of law and order, of din, of justice, and a din as lamalo, God says divine justice will not happen. Therefore Hashem pleads with us, Shimru es hamishpat, observe the laws of justice. Shall tigruli lasus mishpat lamalo, that you should not cause me to bring about justice from above. Shenema ve'elo mishpat mar HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Kol ma sheni yoseh b'dini yoseh. He says, whatever I do, everything's with the context of justice. I'm giving you laws that you should preside over your communities with justice. Abide by it. Now, what's justice? Din is what, as I mentioned, the world was created with, Hashem wanted to create the world with midas hadin, with the attribute, what's din? Din is exactness. It's orderliness, it's an order. But God sets the order. God's order is too strict for mankind. Because if you deviate as much as an iota, there's very serious consequences. Hashem says, I will give it over to the human courts. Let them preside over their societies, over their communities. The Jews, I will give other laws to preside over their communities. But that's justice. There has to be justice. If there's no justice, then you have to have divine justice. And therefore, that's the reason why a person who actually is done emes lamito shel Torah, a person, the judge who renders truly a truthful verdict, he's God's partner in creation, because creation only can exist only if there's justice. If there's no justice on the terrestrial level, there's divine justice, and that means the world has to be destroyed.